Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here. Welcome in my writing room. My name is Rutger Leukfeldt. I work for the Netherlands Institute for the Study of Crime and Law Enforcement, the NSTR, and also for the Hague University of Applied Sciences, where I'm a director of the Center of Expertise Cybersecurity. I'm a criminologist, and I will tell you something today about financially motivated cybercriminal networks. And for those of you that want to read more about this, have a look at this slide. These are some of our latest papers, I think 2022, so that's next year, this year and last year. So they're very relevant and new. So if you're interested, have a look at it later. We also have some older stuff, but this is the latest that I could give you. And everything that I will tell you today is based upon these studies. So you can have a look at it later if you're interested. My presentation for today is about these cybercriminal networks that are financially motivated, and I will tell you something about the network structure. I will tell you something about digital opportunities and whether or not that is changing the network structure or changing the way new people are recruited into the networks and the criminal capabilities. And I will give some attention to crypto markets on the dark web and the use of e-currencies such as bitcoins and whether or not that is changing the networks that we see. Before that, just one thing about the methods that we usually use. So again, if you're interested, look at the papers itself. But most of the stuff that are on the sheets are based on case file analysis of police files. So in the Netherlands, we get access to those. So I get all of the information about the wiretaps, IP taps, but also if they seize computers and communication, etc., etc. So most of the stuff that I will tell you something about today is based on that, and it's because of the work I did for the Monitor Organized Crime in the Netherlands, which is a long-running monitor with all sorts of police files related to organized crime, and now also including organized cybercrime. But it's also on the work that I did before that in the Netherlands, in Germany, in the UK, and in the US. And it's also based on work we're doing right now in the UK. But again, most of the stuff that I will discuss today is based on these closed police files. So first about the network structure, or the criminal cooperation, and how they use IT and what that means for the network structure. What we know from traditional organized crime and from traditional criminal networks, so non-cyber networks, is that when it comes to meeting reliable co-offenders, so criminals that want to work with you and have the same goals and don't turn you into the police or screw you in another way, is that traditional offline social ties are very important for these networks, meaning relationships of family ties, or relationships that are built because of the neighborhood that you live in or because of the work that you're doing are very important when it comes to pathways into crime. You have to know these people to get introduced in the criminal world, and this is usually done along the lines of social context. Of course, you also have offender conversion settings, for example, a criminal bar or another meeting place, which is physically somewhere where you can actually go and meet like-minded people, get involved in new criminal networks. But usually you already have to be in that subculture before you get introduced there, because it's still necessary to have these social contacts. So that's traditionally. Now, of course, we all think that it's changing because of the possibilities, the endless possibilities of the internet, of crypto markets, where you can meet all sorts of other people that can help you to write malware, to maybe offer you some phishing kits, and lots of these criminals are indeed out there. And one of the biggest questions for criminologists and also for law enforcement is, so does it mean that the network structure and the way people are recruited are changing? And on the slide you can already see that this is partly true, but if you look at, for example, the core members of these networks that we studied, and by now we studied hundreds of them, you see that most of the times the core members, so the brains behind the organization, actually are still meeting each other online, know each other from the real world, and then start, recruiting others maybe on crypto markets or on fora or on other places. Not every time, but usually. So you could still see that the traditional processes of building trust and getting acquainted in the criminal world still matter when it comes to cybercrime. And I think that's a very important thing that you have to realize when we're talking about cybercriminal networks. So it's not only people that know each other from a virtual environment and don't know each other from the real world. No, this very often it's people that actually still have real world ties, and this is of course important when you want to investigate them. We did see that the majority of the networks are using crypto markets, other markets, online meeting places to actually get specific tools that they need to carry out the criminal activities, or to hire a very specific facilitator that can help them move money around or do other stuff that they are not able to do themselves. So indeed, the virtual world is important for these networks, but it's usually not the base. So it's usually just to get facilitators in to be able to commit more crimes. And when you talk about money mules, which are usually needed for financially motivated cybercrime, such as phishing, banking malware, and other online frauds, these are still very locally rooted because they need to be recruited locally. And you can definitely see that that's the local part of many cybercriminal networks, whether that being very international networks or locally active networks. So that's always one of the locally rooted elements of these criminals, and of course a way to build interventions against these networks. So this is a figure I made, I think in 2016 already. So what I did, everything below the orange line are traditional social contacts, and before cyber, we only had type 1. So these are networks that rely completely on offline social contacts to get to know each other, to recruit new people, etc., etc. What we discovered, indeed, a new type of criminal network, type 4, people that don't know each other at all from the traditional offline world. So they indeed meet each other on a crypto market, might not ever have, seen each other in real life, and then start, conducting the criminal business. But most networks are type 2 and 3, which are, in the worlds of cyber and traditional are intertwined. So either you still meet each other in the real world, start doing criminal stuff, and then say, okay, we also need some specific tools when you go online, or it's the other way around. You meet each other online, and you need that local network of criminals to help you launder money or other things. So we see that it's much more sophisticated than either only very traditional organized crime or highly international operating criminal networks that never even met each other in real life. So type 4 is much more sophisticated than that. This is an example I always use. This, I think this was the first case I ever analyzed back in, I think, 2012 or something like that. It's a case of phishing in Amsterdam. And this is a great example of a very traditional cybercriminal network, because all of these people know each other from the streets in Amsterdam, and only one guy, you can see it here, the orange one, was in charge of making phishing kits and actually helping out with setting up phishing websites and databases and stuff like that. And they knew him from earlier jobs that they were doing. So even there, the type was social, except for that this person was in another country than the Netherlands, and the rest of them were really close to it. So I published about this case, I think in 2014. So I did analyze a bit earlier and then published in 2014 because I thought it was unique. But the more cases we analyzed, the more we saw this pattern coming back. So one thing I want to tell you that's different are the crypto markets, of course, the darknet market. So we had some of these cases in the Organized Crime Monitor. And this was actually a case where the Dutch police took over the forum for a while. So we have very, very nice insights into how the forum was run. We know who did it. We know about the biggest drug dealers on this particular forum because they were Dutch. And what we found out is that we were thinking it's of course a very global forum because there were people from all over the world. But when we looked at the activities of the 5 biggest drug dealers, it turned out that they were selling across borders, but not globally. So they were more selling like in the Netherlands, and then on driving range, so Belgium, France, Denmark, Germany. And what we also noticed that they usually started out selling online, but then the contacts would move offline very fast. So they're using this crypto market to expand their criminal markets, but they don't necessarily want to go global, and it might have something to do with all of the police investigations, of course, in, for example, the US or in Australia. When somebody from the Netherlands is now shipping somewhere there, of course, they're a bit worried about whether or not they get caught. So this might be, criminals reacting on the interventions that are out there and still using crypto markets, but then using it much more in a local way to get more customers. So I'm almost done. I just want to say something about the money flows that we see within the networks, because traditional criminal networks heavily rely on cash. They want cash. They have all sorts of money laundering networks in place for that. And we always expected that cyber criminal networks were all about e-currencies, which is partly true, but not true when you look, for example, at malware or phishing networks, but also all sorts of other online fraud networks, because they get euros and they don't invest it in bitcoins. No, they just want to launder it as quick as possible. So here, all of the traditional interventions that we have still apply. Of course, the darknet markets or crypto markets are a bit different because you get paid in e-currencies. In our cases, it was bitcoins. In earlier cases, it was, for example, Liberty Reserve or another e-currency. But the thing there is that even these people that got all of these bitcoins, because you get paid in bitcoins, did not want to keep the bitcoins because they want to spend the money, right? So they were exchanging them for euros in the case of the Dutch drug dealers. So what you would see in the cases is that they would get a lot of bitcoins. They would need an exchanger to exchange bitcoins to cash. And of course, because this is all about large quantities of cash, you can't just go to a normal Bitcoin company and try to exchange it. No, they had to have special exchangers. So they would meet in local Starbucks, McDonald's, whatever, in large cities in the Netherlands. The exchanger and the criminal would meet, the Bitcoin wallets came to the table and they would exchange the Bitcoins, and then a big bag of cash came on the table. And of course, that bag of cash was because of the use of very traditional money laundering networks. So here you see a nice intertwinement of new criminals using crypto markets and getting paid in Bitcoins to basically sell stuff all over the world, but still need a local money laundering network to get the cash that they really want. So to sum up, cybercrime very international, very much other type of problems than when it comes to traditional organized crime. But we also see that cybercrime still has a very local dimension. We see cyber criminal networks with local roots. So that can be very local networks because networks operating from the Netherlands attacking in the Netherlands, but it can also be locally rooted in Eastern Europe and then attacking in Western Europe. Jonathan Losthuis has done many interesting papers about that. Still, they have local roots and they know each other. So this gives law enforcement possibilities to get them. But also local embeddedness because of the money mules they sometimes have to use. And this is a very nice way to actually make sure that you can make it harder for criminals to get the cash that they want. So you can also focus very much on these money mule networks. And I think it's important to note that cyber and traditional become more and more entwined, in a sense that you might have cyber criminal networks, but if it comes to money laundering, you see, and I see that in different countries happening, that you can see that the traditional networks that are laundering money now also offer the services to these cyber criminal networks. So you see a nice intertwinement of old and new. And I think cash is still king because, let's be honest, how much can you at the moment do with Bitcoin? So lots of these criminals still want to have cash. That might change in 5 or 10 years, but at the moment, cash is still king. And this also means that a lot of the strategies out there can still be used to tackle cyber criminals. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, my email address is on here. Again, read one of the papers and I'm happy to discuss any other insights that we have with you in person. Thank you very much and have a great conference today.